were told to come alone. Joe said if you vote for him, he'll abdicate his throne as the father of the crime bill, soul of Jim Crow. Proud to live and vote as a Strom Thurmond clone. If he tried to kiss your daughter with a camera rolling, he'll try more than kissing her alone. Cozy up with Jill for a photo like a portrait of the Kissingers at home. You know I hate to kill the messenger, but if he's gotta go, we can FaceTime. Slit his throat while he stares into the phone. Like if you don't know, kitten, now you know. This is where austerity has gotten us. This is all that palpable excitement for a 20-year wait on forgiveness for your student loans. But a distraction's a distraction and it's time to see some action. So here's one last song for Joe, before I try to keep his name out of the lyrics in my phone. Try to shift the focus to our senators and everyone in Congress who is all too happy to be hidden while we're wasted to the bone. It is not food insecure, it's starvation, and it lurks in almost half the country's homes. So if you plan to lay down, hold your nose and vote for Joe, have the guts to admit that you chose to submit and that you decided lending your support to a pedophile must be a step towards hope. That a vote for a man that spent his whole life implementing laws that dehumanized people of color is a vote against fascism. When you know damn well he's just a kinder, dumber face on the same white nationalism. So baby, throw away your scruples with the memories of your activism. Watch your weak resistance usher in a fucking cataclysm. Elect a bigot war pig and say you're gonna push him into pacifism. That's some bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. Bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. Baby, that's some fucking bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. God, that's some fucking bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. That's some fucking...
This here's a song about the great glory of America. F you USA, fuck the Constitution. We can't give you any money cause we spent it on bombs. F you USA, fuck the Constitution. Privatize our life on the earth that you're polluting. Common some genocide, call it revolution. Life is just one big game here, but this fucking stupid. America, the land of the free. America, why did you lie to me? America. F you USA, fuck the Constitution. Keep asking me for rent while you're busting all the unions. F you USA, you're just a red and blue-eyed nuisance. And if you're still bought in, then you're falling for the illusion of America, the land of the free. America, why did you lie to me? America, yeah, 'cause I wanna know where you've gone. 'Cause I wanna know where you've gone, where you've gone. Instead of offering us solutions, we tried to make some money and destroyed our institutions. Fuck you, USA, for all the misery you've caused. The truth really hurts when it stares back at you hard. America, the land of the free. America, why did you lie to me? America, yeah, so fuck you. You kinda deserve it.
know, sir, I like you much better with my glasses off.
I guess I was born with the curse of foresight. Cause I knew Joe was only gonna represent the war side. And that said, I just came to fight. You could keep the or flight. Save the surprise and the gasp when the shadow of the fascists have cast is on your doorstep in the glow of your porch light. Save the surprise when the grid goes down and we go underground to lick wounds in the gloom of a torchlight. While up in the sky, a blimp glides by with a sign like New Year's 2022. Brought to you jointly by Pfizer and Coors Light. While the centrists observe from a comfortable courtside, right in the thick of the action behind a partition. We're in a morbid position, a plague of evictions, born a comorbid condition of the cancer of wealth. I fantasize that I cancel myself, hands on your head, throw your best laid plans in the well. There are no more answers, questions go back on the shelf. All Joe's donors, a quick show of hands. How many of you sub to the Lockheed Martin OnlyFans? How many are loyalist patrons for the Raytheon Patreon? Occupy Iraq and send $1 million off into the great beyond. Cool yourself with the safety on. True to yourself in as much as you dutifully spew out a mucus of QAnon. You can't convince me the capital wasn't surrendered with every intention of digging us deeper down into the treacherous webbing of censorship, ebbing your speech and dissension so you can't hold Biden accountable. Not in his mentions and not in the streets. No to the end that Joe will defend the elite. Joe won't embarrass McConnell, but Joe's not embarrassed if all of your children are hungry and weak. Too hungry to speak. Too hungry to stand, they just lie at his feet. Joe is fresh out of empathy, fresh out of policy, but he'd love to know, what was your favorite ice cream flavor to eat? Back when you used to eat. I guess the road isn't rocky for people who thought we were free. They'll believe what they read, and Joe's here to lull them to sleep. Counting us down by the dozens, the culling of gullible sheep, led to the slaughter by media tyrants and government thieves. These are the leeches that stubbornly suck where there's nothing to bleed. These are the tumors that force us to crawl on our knees. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free.
What's up, everybody? Oh, I did it. I pressed the buttons and shit the right way. You know, I had to actually make sure my slides and stuff are working too. I had to get that ready while we're doing
why
stuff.
is this screen next to my face?
Why is
sir?
the script? Oh, because I haven't. Zoom loves to fucking mess with me right before things go live. Isn't that great? Let's go ahead and find my Google. What is it? Slides. That's it, isn't it? This thing that I've opened 1,000 times. Oh, no
First
worries. No one
episode
can see all that shit yet.
problems.
Yep.
People in the chat.
I know, right? We've been prepping this for a long time though, so you know.
And by prepping for a long time, meaning, well,
avoiding.
I guess
and
technically,
then
yes, we have been
finding
prepping this for a
time.
while.
Yeah.
But the actual work took place last night. But
Yeah.
we've been talking about this for a few
Yep.
weeks.
The plan was that essentially this is Einan's new show that we're gonna try to rotate guests around and stuff like that. You know, so that's always the nice thing, is that we'll bring Einan members in week by week, and you know, different hosts every time and stuff like that. So should be a good time. Let me paste some stuff into some Twitter threads so that people can watch. But I see Warren's in chat. What's up, man? Another INN member.
What up, Uncle?
What's up, bro? But yeah, if you've
heading to New Orleans tomorrow.
New Orleans, NOLA. Yeah, you're going to go watch the basketballs, right? You're
not really, because I don't give a damn.
right.
But I'm just going for the food, honestly.
Yeah.
The food and the company and being there for the first time. Actually, technically, this is my birthday trip that should have happened 2 years ago.
Nice.
So it's happening like a month before my birthday, but I'll take it.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
You're gonna get fat. You're gonna go and get fat. That's what's gonna happen.
Oh, you know what? Like Joshua Wiseman, like that chef on YouTube. So I've been binge watching his content like now for the last month or so, and he put out actually
food.
Yeah, like funny how that he put that out today, like on the day before I leave, and like so. But he made that crab beignet, and I'm kind of I texted my cousin, and I'm like, I want that.
Yeah, that's just crab fritter. That's delicious. Delicious. I mean, gumbo, etouffee. Like, I'm just sound like fucking Bubba Gump here in a minute.
Like,
you know,
yeah,
crawfish. Dude, crawfish is the crawfish. I don't know if the crawfish is in season right now. I think it's actually. You know, it'll be like when rice isn't in season, so probably. But dude, the Korean crawfish is choice. They deep fat fry those whole little mud bugs live. You know, it's gonna be tasty, and then they just cover it in sambal. It's delicious, man. You get it all on your fingers and stuff, and then it's so good. Poor man's lobster. It's delicious. But anyway, we do have some stories today for you. We're hopefully going to get through 4 of them in around an hour, hopefully. So we'll see. What do I have? I got to go all the way back to the beginning. So this is one of your stories that you brought, right?
Yeah.
So this is you can't see it, right? I have to press this button for you to see it. Look at that. You know, let me know if I need to move the camera for you.
No, I'm good. That's good.
Okay.
Well,
I can always just do that, you know.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So I saw this story, I think last week on Twitter, and as a teacher, I connected to this story very much so. So, so this was actually posted, I believe, in both the New York Post as well as the Boston Globe, but paywall. Right. So not gonna read anything from the Boston Globe. So
I gotta get you. Do you have the there's a browser extension that like gets you past a lot of those news paywalls. I'll get you set up with that. It's real easy. But anyway,
I think That'll come in
So,
handy.
a homework assignment at a Massachusetts high school has drawn outrage for being racist after it asked students to list the positive effects of imperialism. So, Carla Walsh tweeted a photo of the history assignment early Tuesday to her 17,000 followers after her 15-year-old freshman sister, Cece, was asked to where's it at? Hold on. Cece was tasked to read a text on the colonization of Africa and then list both the negative and beneficial effects of imperialism. But I'll pull that photo up. So this was the thing, which I love how she like dealt with this, right? Like I don't know if people can read that at home. I think it's pretty close to being legible.
I'll read it, but at the bottom she writes, I think that asking us to identify positives of imperialism, something that killed thousands and contributed to slavery, is extremely undermining and disrespectful to people whose ancestors were murdered because of colonization.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And she put the negative effects. She listed those out real good, like. But yeah, like, we'll go through and finish up the article and talk about it. But forcing students into the mental exercises that would justifying/nationalizing genocide because of its supposed positive effects itself perpetuates genocide and indoctrinates them into supporting an imperial war machine, Walsh wrote. Cece attends Cambridge Rindge and Latin School, a public institution in one of the most progressive cities in the U.S., her sister said. Cece attends Cambridge Rindge and Latin School, a public institution in one of the most... How did I put that? Did I put that twice? How did I do that?
Twice.
Weird. First episode, people. It's not Republican banning critical race theory that are revising history. Racist imperialist revisionism is a key objective of the entire education system, Walsh claimed. She said Cece raised concerns over the assignment to her teacher, prompting her teacher to say that he agreed. Well, at least the teacher agreed, you know?
Yeah.
So, but he doled out the assignment since it was part of the state curriculum and planned to soon distribute other texts with different perspectives, Walsh wrote. So, Collins' initial tweet went viral, racking more than 20,000 retweets and more than 180,000 likes, which I think is where you saw it, right? As of Wednesday, Cece, meanwhile, showed her displeasure directly on the worksheet, leaving the positive effects section blank. I think that asking us to identify positive of... But we read that, right?
Yeah,
so,
she wrote that.
Yeah, that's what she wrote on the page. Which, good for her for being aware enough to, like, write that shit. You know, I would have been lazy and just tried to figure some dumb shit out, you know?
Yeah.
But...
Here was my take on this, which is why I actually wanted to highlight this.
Right.
As a teacher, I resonate with this.
Yeah.
Because this is the kind of thinking that I would hope that my students would have. Like, she was respectful. She talked to the teacher. She explained her reasoning behind not listing any positives. I would assume, and looking at this a little more, doing a little more research, I guess this was like a note-taking class for modern European history, I guess. So it sounds like, and I can probably make the assumption is they're supposed to take the main points for whatever textbook they're using and then writing it down. So I'm sure the textbook or whatever they're using kind of listed out some positives, I guess, that they just wanted to regurgitate. That would be my guess. But this student wasn't having it. So, so she...
I mean, the only positives I can think of is from the imperialist perspective, right?
Right.
You get resources, you get, right. Like,
yeah. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter making that comment, making the comment of, like, her opinion about this is subjective. And then, like, you could list, and this, a lot of people phrase it as more like a critical thinking exercise to think of the pros and the cons. Yeah. And my take on it is this, like, we can't read what was asked, Well, actually, if you looked just at the table, it was like, actually, can you go back to that
Yes.
slide?
Yes, I can. Which one you want me to go? The table that they
Where
had,
she
right?
wrote, yeah,
This
that
one.
one.
Yeah, cool.
So it says positive effects of imperialism and then negative
Negative
effects.
effects.
My take on it, if I just looking at it,
Yeah.
I would assume it meant, in my opinion, what were the positive effects and negative effects? You
Right.
know, not necessarily from the view of the imperialists or people who were affected by it.
Yeah.
So my take on this, if you wanted the point of view, then you need to label it as such. It doesn't
Yeah.
do that. We don't know, but based on what we're looking at this on this chart, it doesn't assume that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't say that. So so I can't necessarily make the assumption that the teacher was asking for like my the perspective of what imperialists believed to be a positive thing. Yeah, you can make the case, but then like I would say, you know, if you are a person of color in particular, you know, if I was asked this, and I think especially given what I know now, you know, like as an adult and like being more aware of like how our past has kind of affected our history now, especially in politics.
Yeah.
I would be very triggered to be asked to write positive effects of imperialism when directly, you know, my family was affected by this, which is what the student wrote here.
Yeah.
And so I just found this to be very, like, I could just imagine if you were a Native American, if you're a person of color, a
Right.
child, a student of color writing this, having to do this, I think, you know, I don't think it was very mindful.
No.
And then the other thing that I kind of noted is that the teacher responded while he agreed that he planned to get
Yeah.
more sources that spoke to different opinions.
So we'll go further into the
well, keyword
article.
planned.
Right. Yeah.
Keyword is planned. Like
right, he planned to. So
he planned to. Whereas I feel like if you were the teacher, why wasn't that a part of the conversation? Why can you have said like we are going to? So
Right.
that kind of assumes like, oh, this chick kind of called me out, so I better bring in those other sources. That should have been a part of the curriculum. And the
Yeah.
fact that actually I just want to actually if you go to the next slide, because I just
Yep.
want to check and make sure what this
So
teacher said.
Walsh told the Boston Globe she got upset because the assignment appeared to downplay the killing of Africans and the pillaging of their lands and resources by using phrases about how the Europeans obtained land or merely took control of colonies. It was very biased and it didn't really give us the truth, CC told the newspaper. The positive effects are often only positive for the oppressors, right? Teachers used to be aware of what text they're choosing to present to students. So the assignment was a note-taking exercise designed to spark conversations during a unit on the age of imperialism, a Cambridge Public Schools spokeswoman told the Post Wednesday. It is important that our students learn about varying perspectives so that they can form their own opinions, spokeswoman Sujata Wyckoff wrote. The individual who shared the partial image of the assignment is not a Cambridge Rindge and Latin School student. They did not have first-hand knowledge of the context of the lesson nor the class discussion. The district tries to teach historical events from as many different perspectives as possible, closed quote, Wyckoff said, adding that the assignment is aligned with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's history and social science standards, which that begs me to think that there's problems there.
I think if you, yeah, but yeah, like, well, the spokeswoman basically was trying to cover her ass, basically,
Yeah.
because she was like, oh, well, this individual who tweeted out, well, yeah, just to give some context, it was the older sister who tweeted it out.
Right.
So, but that doesn't negate the fact that, you know, what the younger sister wrote as a student in that class,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't negate anything that she said. So
Right.
it doesn't matter who tweeted it out, you know, it was still the sister who wrote out that thing.
Right. And
you
how
know?
much has the sister been helping with homework anyway?
We don't
The
know.
blatant statement of like she doesn't know the curriculum. You don't know that. Like, you know. So like I bet she knows quite a bit of it and has been working all week with her little sister to like, you know, explain stuff or prep for a test or like whatever. At least that's what I
Right.
would be doing. So, you know, to me
Like,
it's moot point. I get what they were trying to do. Like, you know, my mother's been a teacher for a long time. These kind of questions are usually like, you know, they're thought and people just, you know, don't even think about it. Like, oh yeah, that sounds good, and then they put it on the test and run with it, right? But you know, this is why all those standards and whatnot, which is obviously what Wyckoff has said that this is part of the standards for um, social science standards, right? And this is in
right.
Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm familiar with like Florida science standards, but not like they're
I'm
usually a
familiar
list
with
of. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Mass because I used to live in Mass, but this is high school, so I'm
Right.
not as familiar with that.
Right.
But but the idea, like, so overall, the implication is this. So, like, based on this test, whatever this was,
Yeah.
um, um, this was essentially knowledge that uh the state of Massachusetts has deemed it like worthy, quote unquote, for students
Right.
to know.
Yeah.
And they're saying, like the teacher planned to get more, other sources or various points of view, or like
Right.
they planned, like our objective is to have. So I just feel like, and I think this is kind of typical of, of education basically is, you know, um, the state basically gives the standards, which is more often than not based on some propaganda, and then is usually up to the teacher if they're skilled enough
Yeah.
to build in to supplement the material that gives a more nuanced view of different. I think if you're looking at history on different issues,
Yeah.
which I just think, and that's what makes teaching like I wouldn't well, yeah, I could say it, but it's not necessarily like it puts all the effort onto the teachers and not on the state to make sure that all students are getting those diverse voices of thought,
Yeah.
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 So
I thought it was an interesting story for sure. You know, I would love to if people want to send us the the standards for Massachusetts on this particular subject, I'd love to see it.
oh, I could pull those up actually.
Yeah.
I can get those easily.
Right.
That could be another
Like a
Another,
return episode.
another segment for another time, I guess. But yeah,
Cool.
but I think overall, just with this student, go you.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I just really am impressed with the fact that as a freshman that she challenged the teacher respectfully.
Yeah.
And it got enough attention where, I mean, she was writing the paper about it, and I hope that they really take to heart, as far as as successful as they're going to be, as to ensure that there are other voices, especially regarding imperialism,
Yeah.
like in the global south, that students are able to learn from. Like, the example was made, like, you're not going to do this with an event like the Holocaust, for example.
Right.
Like, you're
You're
not
not
going
going to
to
go
ask.
what are the positives of right? Yeah.
Right. You're
Yeah.
not going to, and for someone who's Jewish, you're not going to go there with that.
No.
So I just think it's kind of strange that people inherently know that, and this is what I was seeing on Twitter, like, people were able to say, yeah, we all know, like, people were able to admit that, yeah, imperialism is inherently bad,
Right.
but there was a lot of positives that came out of it. But then it's like, at the expense of who?
Right.
So
Well, and there's this old false argument that like, you know, a lot of these cultures wouldn't have made themselves into anything without, you know, Western European imperialists coming down and, you know, giving them quote unquote culture and science and tools and whatever. But like, yeah, like Mozambique was there forever. Like, you know, there's plenty of like instances. I mean, Egypt is one of the oldest, like, you know, in Africa, like all those without European imperialism helping them gain that like, you know, community structure or any of the tools, and you know, like that was all just what Africans did by themselves, you know, like in those regions. Let alone,
Right.
you know, you could claim that it's technically the world is the African empire, with the fact that we all came from there anyway, you know.
Right.
So to me, it's I don't know. It was kind of like I get what the teacher was trying to do, and I wouldn't say it's his fault, you know. But
You
he
know
should have
what?
taken a second to like,
I don't think it was necessarily his fault. I think he was just going by the script.
yeah.
You know,
And he's probably
like,
had that like had that fucking you know, in his like lesson plan for like years now. You know,
I'm not so sure about that because I
Mm.
and again, this is a fear of mine.
yeah.
This might be a teacher who, I'm just guessing, but my guess is this might be a teacher who's fairly new,
Right.
who is not seasoned enough
Yeah.
to really know like
Well, it's to know when
a
to
lot of all
differ
these
from
nuances.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And is not, and like, you know, again, I'm just going with the idea of like, oh, we plan to do this. Like,
Right.
if you were good, and especially like if you were effective in really wanting to make sure that students really got the idea of hearing these multiple voices, especially if you're going to do it that way, you know, to teach about imperialism,
Yeah.
that should be already a part of the curriculum, you know.
Warren wants to
so
let us
we-
know that he came from Chicago, you know, not Africa. So that's
Right.
he was born in the cesspools of Chicagan waste. But yeah, no, I thought this story was definitely good. It was interesting, and it definitely should be talked about. I'd love to see, you know, if there's any like follow-ups on that school, you know, to see if they change some stuff. You know, I don't know how much like, look, I need to see the standards at what they're trying to teach here, right?
Mhm.
That's what I would also like to see, but you know, until we get
could
that
probably,
info,
yeah, we could probably like, yeah, I could easily pull up the Massachusetts
yeah,
history.
we might do a recap and record it and upload it,
Sure.
attach it to the end of this, if we want to. But anyway, Chicago is a small river in Niger Reef. Jeez, that makes sense. That does make sense. From Warren, always with the funnies. But anyway, you want to hit the next story? We can do that.
Sure.
Let me okay, so I'll intro this for us. From another INN member, one of the only people writing in INN, which we would always love writers. If you write either on Substack or whatever, please reach out. We love to see your work and stuff. But anyway, this is The Dissident, who I'm a big fan of his articles. I found this in a website. I don't know if you've heard of it. Indie Left News, IndieLeft.news, one of those websites. You'll probably find it in a link tree in the description. But I'll usually try to pull one of those a week. But this is you know about Bellingcat, right? They've been caught a few times doing some shady reporting. But you know, the Dissident feels like they're the NED's mouthpiece. So we'll get into it. So recently, the supposed independent investigative outlet Bellingcat put out a story that alleged Russia had used chemical weapons on members that attended the peace delegation between Ukraine and Russia. And here's their story. So Bellingcat can confirm that 3 members of the delegation attending the peace talks between Ukraine and Russia on the night of the 3rd or 4th of March experienced symptoms consistent with poisoning with chemical weapons. One of the victims was Russian entrepreneur Roman Abramovich. which I saw this on Reddit as well. At least at this story. So we'll see how, this is Reddit's fucking been awful with this kind of stuff and reporting anything and everything that is anti-Russian right now. Indy wants people to know that we're streaming to that site right now. So that's cool. Warren putting the Substack in chat for people. Do what?
Thanks, Warren.
Yep. That's nice of people. So people should be able to find that after the stream is live. But so yeah, and they're pulling this from Max Colchester. So the allegation gave fodder to the possibility that Russia may use chemical weapons in Ukraine, which Biden said would result in further NATO action in the war. This claim, however, was quickly proven false by Reuters, which reported a U.S. official said on Monday that intelligence suggests the sickening of Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich, I think I got it right the first time, and Ukrainian peace negotiators was due to an environmental factor, not poisoning. So the article goes on to say that the Wall Street Journal and Bellingcat both falsely reported that this sickening was the result of poisoning with chemical weapons. The question is, why was Bellingcat pushing false information that could manufacture consent for more Western involvement in the Russian invasion of Ukraine? Which, yeah, I mean, we've seen Bellingcat manufacture consent for quite a bit here recently. I know TYT is a big fan of Bellingcat recently, especially Anna. But, and it's probably partially because of this. So, the Dissonant concludes that this is because of Bellingcat's sketchy connections. So a look at Bellingcat's funding shows that they take money from the National Endowment for Democracy, the NED, a CIA cutout whose co-founder, Alan Weinstein, was quoted saying, "A lot of what we do today was done covertly 25 years ago by the CIA. The NED has been known to fund opposition media in official enemy countries that push a pro-US line. A few recent examples include Jacobin, which they reported on leaked documents that proved the NED used opposition media to swing Venezuela's National Assembly to the opposition." So scholar Benjamin Waddell also reported that the NED's funding of opposition media in Nicaragua laid the groundwork for insurrection. Bellingcat's founder, Elliot Higgins, also works for the Atlantic Council, a think tank funded by arms manufacturers, oil companies, and Western governments. A leaked report from the UK Foreign Office on Bellingcat found that the outlet was somewhat discredited, both by spreading disinfo itself and by being willing to produce reports for anyone willing to pay. Matt Kernard and Matt Curtis from the independent outlet Declassified UK reported on a leaked document from the UK government that showed that they deployed Bellingcat after identifying North Macedonia as a priority country, quote unquote. Bellingcat then published a report at the behest of UK government called Russia Interference in North Macedonia, a view before the elections. So, Indy left with some hot off the press for this story. Ford Foundation and Rockefeller Foundation also funds the Atlantic Council. So, but yeah, what do you think, Collin?
I will admit I don't know too much of this to. Oh, well, I haven't.
Oh, you're good. I haven't put that up yet, but
I actually don't know too much of this to really give an opinion, but can you, like, in layman's terms, kind of share this out for me a little bit more? Because I actually wanted to look into this a little more, but
so essentially what he's trying to say, I think, right, is we'll let the Dissonant conclude his thing. This is yet another example of Bellingcat pushing false information in favor of the State Department's agenda, right? And it's just essentially this whole story is don't believe everything they put out,
right?
Like you got to go in and look at stuff, and right now Bellingcat is trying to discredit the Gray Zone and other lefty outlets. So it's kind of hard to. A lot of people will look at Bellingcat as a legitimate source, right?
Right.
They will countlessly you'll see in Twitter threads where people are posting Bellingcat articles to try and discredit what people are saying about plenty of conflicts, right? So, and I think the Dissonant was just trying to point out that, look, you got to follow the money. You got to look at where they're funded, who's funding them, right? Why would they have these opinions? Not just it's like these are opinion pieces usually, right? That are trying to base themselves off some semblance of information, right? And you have to be able to parse all that shit out and figure it out for yourself. And that's not easy for people, No.
I mean, I think it makes sense considering, what's been happening, in independent media, I think since forever, really. And I think just ultimately, I know TYT has referred to that when I used to watch TYT. But
yes.
But they refer to them a lot. So I think, knowing of them now, and I think how more mainstream MSNBC light they have become, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think my I'll withhold my question for now. But yeah, it's not surprising, but I think it's kind of but I think this is just kind of goes to show how much information is just so saturated. I think especially on social media, and that there's enough there's enough good stuff within certain articles or within certain organizations that you can kind of pull as true, but then essentially it's just a lot more propaganda, so even to some cases The Intercept as well is also kind of privy to this too, and I think that's just kind of sad given what media has become, just as far as looking for the more of the sensationalism part, but then mostly it's we have to cater to our donors / corporations part, where we're willing to say this stuff to create a narrative for you that you must believe because
and this goes hand in hand with the clip that Jimmy always plays about the guy talking about how he talks to journalists and gives them stories, and I'm sure Indy, who remembers names way more than I do, will tell me who that was and what clip that is. But it's some CIA ex-spook going there and talking about how he deals with media, right? And this to me is part and parcel with that, right? And this is the NED, which is essentially stating that they are doing what the CIA used to do, right? Out in the open, right? And this goes hand in hand with a couple of articles I remember from the Gray Zone. I want to say it was might have been Rubenstein. I forget who did this particular article, but it was about bread tubers specifically, right? And it talked about this particular UK bread tuber that was essentially found out to be using exactly stuff Bellingcat's work and this script that was being put out by intelligence officials, right? And particularly on COVID stuff, right? And that's all part and parcel with this kind of stuff, to where if you are a quote unquote independent journalist and you're pulling this information to use without questioning it or whatever, then you're probably going to be questioned, to the point where I'm not going to trust you there, right? So, but I digress. I thought it was a good story to show people. Plus it's the Dissonant. Want to give him a shout out. I'll put the links to all the Dissonant Substack and stuff, which I can tell Indy and them already put those Substacks in the chat. So if people want to go find that, go give that a like. You know, that would make the dissident very happy. But anyway, we got another story, right? Which kind of goes part and parcel with that.
Sure.
So Biden slips, calls openly for the removal of Putin. This weekend in Poland, Biden said Putin can't remain in power. So this is by Ray McGovern over at SheerPost. So shout out to Ray. He does pretty good stuff. But so this is Ray McGovern pulled Fee's tweet. Fiorella Isabella Convo Couch. If you're not going and following her on Twitter, I suggest you do at Fiorella Isabella because I think she's had to tack on a couple of names at this point. But also shout out the Convo Couch. Go watch their stuff if you haven't done that already. But yeah, so Biden calling for regime change, says the quiet part out loud. This is America's war on Russia. The difference is the tide has changed. A call like this, when Russia, China, and the global South are united in business and geopolitical need, is laughable. So this is the clip she's pulling from. So I'll just play that for people. With sound, please.
Be in this fight for the long. We must commit now to be in this fight for the long haul. We must remain unified today and tomorrow and the day after, and for the years and decades to come. It will not be easy. There will be cost, but it's a price we have to pay. So in this hour, let the words of Pope John Paul burn as brightly today. Never, ever give up hope. Never doubt. Never tire. Never become discouraged. Be not afraid. A dictator bent on rebuilding an empire will never erase a people's love for liberty. Brutality will never grind down their will to be free. Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia, for free people refused to live in a world of hopelessness and darkness. We will have a different future, a brighter future, rooted in democracy and principle, hope and light, of decency and dignity, of freedom and possibilities. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. God bless you all, and may God defend our freedom, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
And may God have mercy on all your souls.
There goes his Catholic upbringing right there.
I know, right? Nomina Patre et Filii Spiritus Sancti. But how did he get? He's reading a prompter. How does he get words wrong? Like so frequently. I don't get. Like it was like don't get comfortable. Don't become the. Like what, bro? Sound it out. Go slow. Like just have to show off that elder abuse a little bit. But so what did you think of that? Just right off, what was your first impressions?
I mean, first impression was a capitalist calling out another one.
Right.
So it's just kind of like,
yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, I really want to give what's happening in Ukraine. It's hard for me to give attention to Ukraine, considering what's happening there and considering like the racism that is like apparent there.
Yeah.
So for me, honestly, I've just kind of tuned out,
right.
In a lot of ways. And in a way, I really shouldn't be. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, like when, like anything that can become mainstream, it's just can become like, like almost not to this degree yet, but like 9/11, like
right.
This idea of like patriotism, but I think in this case, solidarity, for Ukraine. And it's kind of like, it's hard for me to feel like
when you get
Ukraine.
into the shelling of the Donbass region that has been happening with NATO bombs, essentially, that, it's we're funding all that. And then on top of, it's NATO expansion, you know, there's so much involved in this whole story for people who aren't aware of even the historical context of Ukraine's Ukraine's racism. Like, you know, I was hearing someone talk about today that, yeah, like a lot of you know, the original Nazi shit was from in and around that like region as well as Germany, you know.
Right.
But you know, that's part of it, and I get that Russia is also using that as, you know, manufacturing their own consent, right? I am not blind to that, right? But I think the Russian people, obviously, with Putin at 71% favorability, right? You know, feel like these are the right decisions to be making, you know? Right. I've seen countless stuff from Russians going that this is exactly what needs to happen, right? And, you know, that it should have happened a long time ago. So I don't know, you know, I think it
shows like, as evil as Putin is, he's showing, you know, like the concern that he should have, you know, for his country. Like, where the fuck has Biden been, you know, in the last couple of years? So it's kind of like, you know, like Putin is, to his credit, becoming a man of the moment in Russia.
Yes.
You know, like, and is actively doing that, you know, whereas we can't even get Biden, you know, to give us COVID tests.
Yeah.
You know, like,
well, this is partly, you know, if you look at this whole quote unquote new world order, you know, people hear these words and they immediately, that sounds like conspiracy, right? Like, yes, if I say it like Alex Jones, sure, you know, like the new world order, like, yeah, of course that sounds weird, but all that means is that there's an order to the world and there's a new one. Right. And this is partly, I think, why, you know, part of this was, you know, Trump for 4 years pushed us into a new world order with, you know, people not just blatantly listening to the foreign policy requests of the United States. Right. And Biden hasn't managed to gain any of that, like, you know, trepidation. Like, you know, he's not made it easier for any of those other countries to think we're doing better foreign policy wise. We've in fact done worse since then. Right. You know, so this to me is like the almost the, you know, the death cry of the American empire with, you know, look, they're making Russia's changing to, you're going to have to pay us in rubles if we're going to give you gas. Right. You see a lot of countries, China, North Korea, all these places realizing that you need a gigantic military, an overwhelming force. You need a deterrent for America to not come invade you, right? You know, I mean, you can look at how Iraq has been, or Iran specifically with their nuclear deal, right? And how we treated that situation, you know, and, you know, there's been talks of, you know, disarmament between these two countries for years, neither of them wanting to do anything. Russia, in fact, has been more willing historically to get rid of them, right? Keep in mind, we're the only ones who've used a nuclear weapon against civilians, you know? So, you know, we're the murderers in the room that everyone is trying to make sure doesn't murder people again. So, you know, it's to me interesting to see the blatant propaganda and manufacturing consent for this that everyone's just okay with. Facebook even has now said that it's okay to call for violence against the Russian people. I mean, they can try to clarify that it's soldiers, but they're allowing a lot when, you know, weeks ago, months ago, you couldn't say that about anybody. If you said any violent stuff, they would, you know, report you and pull your channel and whatever. So, you know, to me, that kind of stuff is...
It's only okay because it's a Democrat in office.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
That's why it's okay.
So we'll go ahead and continue into the article. If I can full screen this. I don't want to listen to you again, sir. There we go. F11 to get back to full screen. There we go. Feeling his oats after effusive adulation from leaders of NATO and Japan at the G7 summit, Biden gave us the mother of all faux pas this afternoon in Poland. Echoing imperious King Henry II of England, Biden under the equivalent of "Will no one rid me of this troublesome priest," or troublesome president. The priest, of course, was Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury. The president is Vladimir Putin, who had already warned a complete break in Russia-U.S. relations. So, referring in all but name to Putin, Biden said this man cannot remain in power. Reminder that should not be necessary. Prudent presidents have been reluctant to say that of the leader of other countries, sometimes even when the two are at war. Nor do I need to point out the inevitable hurdle to the cooperation necessary to negotiate a halt to invasions and introduce a ceasefire. Is it all the same to Biden that the carnage continue, with rhetorical promises of support, weapons that are blown up as soon as they cross the border into Ukraine, and crocodile tears? I wonder if he talks about that, but this will not end well. Among other things, it amounts to public confirmation at the chief of state level, no less, that U.S. involvement in Ukraine, particularly since the U.S. arranged coup d'etat on February 22nd, has been regime change in Russia. The coup has been accurately labeled the most blatant coup in history. The main orchestrator, caught on tape arguing for a new Ukrainian prime minister, was Victoria Nuland, now number 3 at the State Department, telling her nominal boss, Tony Blinken, what to say and do on Ukraine. This bit, those rhetorical promises of support, apparently Zelensky knew that, when I first read that, Zelensky had been told that he wasn't going to join NATO, but that the doors were open publicly, I thought that was recent. I thought that had just been said. But when I looked into it further, no, he's saying that was said from the get.
Yeah.
Right? And so, this is just blatant, cannon fodder, essentially, that, for no other reason other than pride, ego, and, U.S. Wants, foreign policy-wise, that this guy's willing to risk the lives of the Ukrainian people, essentially.
Right. It just makes the idea of Russiagate, that much more
absolutely
heinous. Because it's like, this was planned, but I think to manufacture consent, as far as hearing about Russia, that now is kind of like, oh, we must go over there. Again, it just kind of I'm just getting 9/11 vibes.
Yeah.
As far as, oh, we have to go after, the Saudi, we have to go after them,
right.
But I think, whereas that was a little more immediate, you can argue, this has been a little more slow and deliberate.
With Syria recently, when Trump was in office, the only time they called him presidential was when he was bombing airports in, Syria over, they wanted him to fight Putin, right? And this was when, Obama had left essentially a ton of U.S. and NATO troops in Ukraine on the border of Russia, deliberately. To see if Trump would move them, essentially, right? And then they could have had a story either way, right? Where he's leaving these troops here, that means he wants to go to war, or, if he moves them, he's, pro-Putin. So, but this article goes on to say that, coup no surprise, neither was Russia's reaction. So after Nuland openly bragged in December of the U.S. having invested $5 billion in Ukraine's aspiration to join the West, and then orchestrated the coup 2 months later, one agency of the U.S. intelligence community, the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, got it right. Presaging. Sure. I've never heard that word before. What slipped out of Biden's lips earlier today in an annual national security strategy report mandated by Congress DI Director Lieutenant General Vincent Stewart on December 25th signed off on the following text, right? So the Kremlin is convinced the United States is laying the groundwork for regime change in Russia, a conviction further reinforced by the events in Ukraine. Moscow views the United States as the critical driver behind the crisis in Ukraine and believes that the overthrow of former Ukrainian President Yanukovych, right, is the latest move in a long-established pattern of U.S. orchestrated regime change efforts. For some reason, the mainstream media gave no play to that key finding.
Of course not.
Yeah, let's see how they play Biden's confirmation of it. But yeah, they're, to me, this was like, this is similar to what happened in Venezuela too. It just didn't work that time, but this is essentially Russia going, yeah, they've been actively cooing our stuff, and this is with stories of Russia recently and Putin specifically getting rid of tons of staff, right, in and around the Kremlin, under like fears of assassination, right? That even that's possible. This is like we go back to like, Bay of Pigs stuff, right? Where United States is willing to do a lot. If they're not like, if they feel they have no consequences, So with Bay of Pigs, there was consequences, right? Specifically a bullet from a book suppository, but notice I said suppository, not repository, because that's my fun and joke. That's my jokes. But it's the grassy knoll, the multiple shooters, and then somehow killed the mob guy after it. But yeah, I mean, this is and people are, I see that on Reddit, where people are okay with the calls for Putin's assassination,
Yeah.
Like that's normal for people to now want,
Well, again, manufactured consent.
Yeah, very much so.
Like very much like almost to the T of how it's been created since,
right.
I would say since 2014, 15.
Yeah.
To now.
And not only with also the censoring of the only network that could even voice the opinions of Russia here, right, in any positive light,
Right.
like I don't see MSNBC bringing on Chris Hedges or any of those people who could voice their opinions on this. Do you remember when Obama was on the campaign trail and we were doing debates? I think it was Romney, right? Where he told Romney that the 80s called, they want their foreign policy back, right? Apparently it's the 80s now, because this is Cold War ass shit. We've been we've been trying to make proxy wars, which we've been doing forever, by the way. Most of those proxy wars in the Middle East are against Russia, right? Keep in mind, what weapon do the terrorists hold, Collin? What do they tend to be using? Right, whenever you see them, that little Kalashnikov branded model, like the number one export from Russia is that weapon. So, right. And sales of the Russian surplus here in America went up by dramatic amounts. So, get those little riveted guns now if you're looking for them. But I don't know. I'm always baffled at the fucking manufactured consent that's been going around this. So I'm glad we got some journalists out here talking about it. And this was one of many Russia stories, and specifically, Putin or Biden increased the nuclear budget as well by significant amounts, right? And they're starting to pull COVID dollars away. So not only are you not going to get your tests, you're also not going to get your radiation tests or your iodine pills. So keep that in mind while you're supplying your bunkers. But,
well, I think also like you know, like I've been hearing like other podcasters and commentators say this, like I think just the idea of like having to grow your own food and all that shit, like that, that's, like when people may have first heard it maybe 2 years ago, it was just kind of like people laughing in your face about it. And now it's definitely become more of a reality now.
How old are your parents, Colin?
They're in the, they're as old as Biden. So like they're in the 80s, basically.
Do they live here or were they abroad?
My mom is here.
Okay.
Dad is abroad.
Gotcha. So, my parents are also boomers, born in like literally in the 50s, right?
Well, technically mine are silent.
Right. Yeah.
So, because they were pre-World War II.
Pre-World War II.
So,
right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my parents.
Oh, no, they were born during the war.
The war. Right. Yeah. Mine was, dad was 52, mom was 50. So they made it past that. They were definitely right in the middle of booming. But my dad has like 7 brothers and sisters. That they were definitely doing that. But my point was that that during World War II, when we were preparing for a national war, we set up things like victory gardens and stuff like that. Those are part of the war effort. That people are going to have to grow their own food. Now with this food shortage that we're just supposed to accept because we've got to fight some Russians that like I suggest people doing that. And right now is the time to put stuff in the ground. I don't know if you know how seasons work, but I've got my maters and stuff going. I got peppers and whatnot. My berries are coming in, so I just got to keep the birds from eating all my fucking berries. Get off my berries. Or my berries.
What kind of berries?
Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. We have got all those blooming. I've even got mulberries. That thing's blooming. You think I would just make enough for the birds to be like, take some,
Right.
But no, they get those fuckers before they're even ripe yet. They just, they're just grabbing those things. It's like, I need to put nets and stuff over everything. I just don't want to do that. But yeah, so you ready for our last story for tonight?
Yeah.
It's everyone's favorite story this week.
Well, and we knew it was going to keep going, and even today, it's going.
Jimmy beat us to the punch on one of the things today.
Which was
the one that you said that we shouldn't bring on. Jimmy pulled on.
What did I say?
The Arsenio bit.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah, well, it's not to say I didn't want to do it. But
you were like, we didn't know.
Like, I just want to get I'll explain, but I just want to give some context to it. I was fine with playing it, but like the context around it is kind of like we have to kind of debunk somewhat.
Let me pull up our last story, right? And of course, we have to talk about the slap heard around entertainment circles that really
literally around the world is global news.
Yes, so it's global news.
It's literally global.
And I've seen plenty of our friends talking about it on Twitter and stuff like that, but I think we've got some interesting takes here, so you want to get into it? Let's show what people happen. This is one of my favorite breakdowns about this. So we'll
it's
hit
the
play
Oscars.
button on
Everybody's
this.
laughing and having a great time, and Chris Rock's on stage and he's making jokes about all the people in the crowd and poking fun out of them. And Will Smith's there, he's smiling and having himself a grand time. And then Chris Rock's gonna make a joke about Will Smith's wife Jada.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right.
And if you don't know what that joke is, G.I. Jane's a movie with Demi Moore where she had to shave her head, buzz cut, and Jada Smith has recently come open to the public about her struggles with hair loss and alopecia.
Now, at this point, I can only laugh. And y'all know I've been struggling with alopecia.
So at this point, she can only laugh. She's been struggling with it. She came out. It's a big deal. And so let's hear the joke again.
G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right?
And Will Smith accidentally finds it hilarious. Just big ol' open mouth laugh, head chuckle galore. One more time.
G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right?
Will's laughing it up. Uh-oh. Jada does not like the joke. She stares some daggers Chris Rock's way. Sometime right after this scene, she's going to turn to Will, give him the same look, and that's going to change the way this goes.
That was a nice one. Okay.
That was a nice one. Okay, forget about it. Let's just move on and let's let this die.
I'm out here. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Richard. Oh, wow.
So at this point, everyone's like, is that real? Is that fake? What the hell was that?
Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me. I like Will Smith's style here because I feel like this is a slap that he learned on a movie set somewhere because he really sticks it. So he goes palm
it's
out.
Super weird. His follow
really
through
follows
too,
through like Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Like that just doesn't seem like a normal slap. It seems like a movie set taught him that full body twist.
Slap.
And Chris Rock just eats it. I tried to zoom in because it still seems fake at this point, but it wasn't a punch. It was a slap. And Chris Rock just eats it. And he's like, what the hell? People are still kind of laughing in the background like, what the hell's going on?
Wow, dude.
Wow, dude is the ultimate response when someone overreacts to a joke. That's pretty universal. That's probably been going on for 60 years. Wow, dude. Really?
Yeah. It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
I'm going to, okay?
I'm going to. I don't want to be involved with you in any way anymore. We're good. And the whole audience goes silent now because it's like, oh my God.
Okay.
I think he's saying there, oh, I could. And I'm like, what could you do?
Okay.
Oh, I could do it. Whatever you could do.
That was greatest night in the history of television. Okay. Okay. So we are here to give a documentary out. To give an Oscar.
To give an Oscar out. That's the only flaw in the whole thing from Chris Rock. Everything else he did was amazing. If he would have nailed the next line, it would have been great, but he's not here to give a documentary out. That would be weird, unless he's a producer somewhere. I just want to show you that after the punch, as far as we can see, Chris Rock never touches his face, never rubs it, never nothing. So, I mean, he comes out the big winner if this is real. I also love this look behind stage, like, we're just gonna, you guys aren't gonna stop or anything. We're just gonna, right? Yeah, you want me to just stay up here and do the presentation as I had planned? Give the documentary out? All right, sounds good.
Yep.
It's funny looking at it from that context now, because I haven't seen, like, I've seen bits and pieces of that whole exchange, but not like fully, but then kind of stopped and slowed down like in this way. Like, but it's kind of interesting. Like at the end, like Chris was kind of looking off to the side. I think he was always kind of like,
yeah, and
security?
he just got this. This is all he got off stage. He just like keep rolling. You know, I mean, I've seen some stuff that I'm not sure if it's real or not about like prosthetics on Chris, right? I don't know if you saw that photo. You know, it was hard for me to like verify whether that's the case or not. I don't know why they would fake this at all. You know, I mean, other than just being part of the show, like making good, like exciting content. You know, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've hashed this out enough, you know, so like people who know me, you know, shout out to the people though who I've talked to, you know, over the last few days. I think for the people who have been able to look at this whole thing, but able to kind of take the nuance behind it, because there's really a lot there that I think people there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot into this that I think I've been very appreciative of people being willing to go there and kind of
Well, I'll pull
think
this
about like
this tweet up that I saw. Telling people to watch the tape. Jada's no victim, just a vindictive woman that triggered a good man into violence over a joke. G.I. Jane is no insult. Demi made that look fashionable and a display of inner strength. G.I. Jane 2 to address sexual assault in the military should be greenlit, and I'll watch the fuck out of that with, Jada in it.
right.
Like,
And I mean, and that was the main point. And like, we're not gonna argue. Like,
yeah,
this is not the forum, like, and especially like Reef and I are not gonna, like, we've talked about this, and I think we generally agree, but I know there are people, like, even online, who have difference of opinion, and you're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah.
That being said, this is our show, so we're gonna state
our
opinion.
opinions.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen some stuff like, the joke wouldn't have been made if she was, had cancer and not this and whatever, Collin,
Right,
as a bald man yourself, how would you feel, with like, if would you go slap Will Smith over him,
Well, here's the thing, like, my issue with this, number one, is like, I just heard a lot of talk, just as far as people saying, oh, like, Will had a right to do it, like he was defending his wife's honor and like all that kind of stuff. And look, I will say this, like, I mean, I could understand it way more if Chris like called her a B or whatever else,
Right.
and like really try to go after her. Like, yeah, like absolutely. Like
It's
in
also,
that instance,
to me, it's also
go
not an
ahead.
excuse. Do you know how many Cletuses have claimed that excuse to the officer that, he desponged my wife's honor, right? Like,
Right.
like that doesn't excuse you going up on net. This is the issue, is that, and this is the key with a lot of people that were there in that room. They can do whatever they want without consequences, generally.
Well, I think just thinking about this more today, I don't think people expected him to walk off without not having the cops show up.
I know Wanda, Wanda Sykes, I think that's how you say her name. I always mess up her last name.
Yeah.
She was talking about that she was backstage going like, why is he still in the room? Like,
Right.
why did they not get her out of here? If that was like anyone else, if it was a wait staff that had came up and done that, they would have dragged him out of the room. Just that they wouldn't even let him meet him on stage.
Right. And that's why I was saying just now, like, I think Chris was, when he was looking off to the side, I think he was almost kind of looking like
what, do we stop? What do we do? Right.
Like, are you going to get him, basically? Right. So, but I said this to you and I said this to other people, so I'll say it again. And I probably may have to say this a couple more times because, as I said, the story has legs. Yeah. So seemingly a lot more legs, but I'm sure we'll probably talk about this more at another point. But this is my stance on this. This is not about Jada. This is about Will and his ego. He's been emasculated. The whole family has been emasculated for the past couple of years, especially given Jada's entanglement with August Bensina. And Will was looking for a moment. Yeah. Will was looking for a moment. And unfortunately, Chris presented an opportunity for that moment.
On top of the last Oscars that Chris Rock was involved with, he made that joke then about, her not being invited. Right.
But then, but two things, like, I remember because I watched clips on this, like, she was Will and Jada were calling people to boycott. And part of the reason why is because he didn't get nominated for, what was that movie? I forgot the name of the movie. If you guys remember.
I know which one you're talking about. I just don't remember.
I forgot the name of the movie off the top of my head. But, I think, so basically they boycotted it out of spite because Will wasn't nominated. But Jada said, you know, like, you know, like she said to like in an interview, like, Chris, good luck to you, whatever.
Right.
You know, and then like when Chris made the joke about Jada not being at the Oscars, E! News interviewed her and she said, you know, like it is what it basically it is what it is. We have to keep on moving. So she didn't care. You know, like she didn't care then. So
well,
my
the fact
question
that Will
is,
laughed to begin with, and then like got the dagger eyes, and then oh shit, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight if I don't do anything. Which, like, okay, you have a fucking acceptance speech. In how long did it take for them to get to like best actor? Like, you know, you could have said something then. You could have said something when they pointed at the camera when you like get nominated. Like any of those things you could have done. You know, but to me, it's I don't know. You know, comedians deal with this a ton, right? Where, you know, especially if you're working clubs where people are drunk and inebriated, you know, and, you know, you're trying to deal with a heckle, right? And the heckler's husband is there, and, you know, it's a constant, like, you're constantly feeling threatened in that environment. You're the one on stage, you got lights in your eyeballs, like, you know, it's weird with, you know, there's been multiple times now where a comedian has had to actively defend themselves from a heckler, you know.
Right. But here's the thing too, like, Chris was doing a gig. He was paid.
Right.
This is the Oscars. Like, they are paid to heckle people, you know? So like, I'm sure after this, they're probably not going to do that anymore. But
I've seen multiple, I've tried to find it, by the way. When this was coming out, you know, I had seen a couple of tweets that, you know, Chris didn't write the joke, right? But I've tried to find, like, who wrote it, right? And, like, since then, I've not been able to find, like, any info on that, like, other than, like, it was
either
ad-lib.
way, you know, like, you're going to have a comedian at an event like this. People are going to get heckled, you know? So, like, it's just part of the territory, you know? In the same way that Laverne Cox, who wasn't a comedian, and I brought this up, Laverne Cox made a direct crack at both of them, basically being like, no more entanglements.
Right.
You know, like, that would have warranted me. Honestly, that could have warranted more of a response from Will and Jada, but like, they didn't do anything. Probably because Laverne is just as big and built as Will is, so she could probably take him on.
Dude, if he had said that shit to fucking Wanda, she would have beat his ass. Like, you know.
But Will's not going to say that to them because he doesn't want the LGBT community coming after him. He's not going to go, like, Robin Roberts interviewed him a few weeks ago, talking, you know, like, I think she basically asked him, like, so are you guys in an open relationship? And Will basically, I tried, to my knowledge, if I remember correctly, was like, no, like we're committed to each other, whatever. He didn't lose it on her, you know. So he knew he could get away with it with Chris because Chris is not going to do anything.
Right.
You know, Chris
he's going to crack a joke, if any. Right.
Chris is not a thug, you know. And I made this point, you know, like, you know, Chris was ordained by God, you know, to withstand that, whether you think it's fake or not, but to able to withstand that and not, like, I've said this, if that were me and someone came up to me like that without warning and just slapped me across the face, like, they would have gone more than 3 feet.
3 feet.
You know, I can't guarantee that they would have gone more than 3 feet.
I mean, it's also the fact that he just let him walk up, didn't put his hands in front of him, like, didn't do any, just, you know, essentially hands behind his back. Like, he got sucker punched, essentially, you know, and he thought Will was going to do a bit or whatever. Like, I don't know. I mean, to me, it all seems fake to begin with. But, you know, friend of the show, Jimmy Dore, had this to say. What Will Smith and the Academy Awards did was make everyone who performs live a lot less safe. Now, the next time a comedian gets heckled by a woman and the comedian responds, her husband boyfriend will feel it's his duty to assault the comedian. Amazing how people support this. So, and I've seen plenty of comedians share this same sentiment about it.
Because it's low-key censorship. It's low-key censorship. Like, a podcaster I was listening to, Lovely T, mentioned that she recently went to a show with Cat Williams and Lunel. And she made the comment that, the opening acts who were younger and a lot more raw were really giving it and were really like laughing. But when it came to Cat and Lunel, like they were so stifled, to crack a joke. Because everything is so PC, comedians are not all, but
and Cat Williams has been choked out by a 14-year-old for making jokes. Like,
and honestly, as far as people on the internet, people really should shut the hell up, because it's like I've seen and like I've been a part of this. Like, people are like, oh, Christian has said that, and all that kind of stuff. But these same people on Twitter and social media have said the most
horrendous,
awful things,
about their appearance,
and they do it for free. They do it for free. Chris was getting paid,
about hair specifically.
Like, you're willing to call people out that you may not necessarily know and say the most heinous things for free. At least he got paid to make that G.I. Jane crack at JDM. So, so like, but we got Indy wants us to
get to the memes. I know we're getting there. So I mean, that sentiment is so like prevalent that even Ryan Grimm thinks Jimmy's right on this, which this thread is gold, by the way, if you want to go look that up, because it's full of just people super conflicted. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. But I think, I mean, it just like, I remember seeing Ludacris when I went to Vegas a few years ago, and like just between sets, he was talking about, women's titties. Basically, he went on like a 20-minute sermon, about women's titties. Like, I didn't have the permission just to go up to him and slap him and being like, shut up and play. But that's kind of where we're at right now. Like, the guy's wife who doesn't have titties anymore because of like cancer didn't get mad, like, and go up and like slap fucking who, you know what I mean? Like, that's anyway.
Human Loves to Solidarity says Chris Rock wins hands down. I mean, really, I don't give a damn, because like these are rich people and these are rich people problems. Like, at the end of the day, they can go back to their mansions or whatever else. But basically, I'm on Team Chris. And
we'll show you why. We'll show you why we feel it's important in a minute to talk about. But this is Jimmy played this on his show today, although he had technical problems when he did, so hopefully I don't. But this is from, does it say when it was from?
Given the close,
it's Arsenio 90. Yeah, so
it's 99. It's in the early 90s. Look at the dress.
Oh, definitely color block everything. We got pads on the elbows, right?
You can't do that in this world, man. You can't do that in this world, man. Arsenio, they got rules. Like, he has a rule. The bass player, he got a rule. He got to wax his head every morning. That's a rule. He follows the rules, man. He follows the rules. Oh, these are jokes. Come on. See, you got too into the characters and got hurt. Wait. Oh, we got that commercial? How about the interview? We didn't do no interview. We're being silly. Okay, we'll come back and we'll act like adults. Yeah, because my mom told me she wants me to do a good, proper interview. So we'll be right back. We'll be right back with his mom.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, this is alopecia,
Right. I mean, here's what I wanted to say before, because like I think just on Reddit, like they're saying that the bassist had alopecia. We don't know
Right.
that. We
Right.
don't know that, you
I
know,
was
like I
looking
think
for
people are
the-
trying to be messy. So like, no, we don't know he had alopecia. Like he
Right.
just could be bald for the sake of being bald,
Well,
because
I think even
us
just
black
being
men can
bald
do it
is
and we look
technically
good with it.
is
So-
technically alopecia. Yeah, dude, I'm worried about it. I've been taking biotin for weeks, like months, because like I saw it thinning. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, hair is half my personality. I gotta fucking, you know. I also like, no one knows their head shape. Like, you know, I'm sure it's just like hot dogs all the way down. You know, like you can't be doing that shit. But yeah, there was a comment in here that essentially said that like all of it's alopecia technically, right? It's
I
just
guess,
called
but
different.
you know, I don't want to say
stuff.
people have alopecia unless they say it directly. So
Right.
that's just my take. Unless
you-
if they tell you that they have it, then you can't assume
Do you,
it's.
do
it
you
is
have
what it is.
alopecia, or do you just like go with the bald look? Cause, you know.
I have thinning hair,
Gotcha.
so like my hair is like really thin up here and a little thicker up here.
Right.
Like it doesn't grow out into an afro anymore. So it just
Gotcha.
looks. I don't want to go with like the old dude look of just like having hair here and like next to nothing here. So
Yeah.
hence I'm bald now.
So we felt like, you know, this is what everyone remembers from the Oscars and stuff. But we want. I felt like when I saw it personally, I felt that they are doing this and making this a big push because they kind of want people to forget about the most important part about the Oscars, which is the fact that it was brought to you by biotech and Pfizer, among plenty of other things. And apparently thousands of people agreed with me. You know, that this is all of that. Also, the replies in this, I got like 20 of them that are like, oh yeah, that's why they put it as like, you know, advertise it full screen. I'm like, you idiots. Like, it's all like the standard. Like when I'm getting the same reply from like bot accounts, like I know I said something right, you know.
Right.
But and this went on to, we found out recently that Pfizer and BioNTech go to Hollywood with splashy Oscar sponsorship, right? And if we look right here, Pfizer announces positive top-line results from phase 2B/3 trial of ritlecitinib. I hope that's how you pronounce that. In alopecia areata, which is what Jada has, right?
Well, I don't know that. I think there are different types of alopecia, but this type is basically when your hair leaves in patches, basically.
Yes.
So yeah, I had to look that up. But yeah, I think, you know, I didn't watch the Oscars because I was sick, like when it came out, and I don't give a damn. I only found out about the slap like when I woke up, you know, Monday, and obviously, you know, Chris and Will were trending. But you know, like, but my first thought, you know, like within the first half hours, like, this is a distraction of what, you know, and this is one of them. And I think, to be fair, I see some people talking about this, but not enough where, like, I think like it's not going to be like, it's going to be a blip, you know, really, you know. But I think we're saying this because you know, like, it's not to say like Jada and Will have anything to do with this directly. We don't know, you know, and we can't necessarily speculate that, but it does call into question the idea of like, now she admitted that she had alopecia, I think back in 2018, but I don't think even then it was really public knowledge, because even online I'm hearing from people like they didn't know until she said it, like just at the Oscars, or I heard about she had alopecia like a couple of months ago, you know. So I don't think, which is funny given like how open they are about their life, that very few people, it seems like, didn't really know that.
Well, and that's the thing is, I don't even know. Did Chris know? Is the thing,
right? And that's what I'm saying. It's like people are going off and being like, "Oh, Chris knew," and like, you first of all, you don't know that, because, you know, like, you don't know like how connected Chris is to Hollywood like that, like, so it's not to say like you can't assume that he knew. So, but even if he did know, I still don't feel that the joke was in bad taste. Like G.I. Jane wasn't about, a woman having alopecia. G.I. Jane was about a movie about a woman who did basic training.
Right.
And like the idea like Demi had to shave her head and commit to that role is what, like what she gets credit for. That's kind of what I heard, just as far as what Chris was saying.
I think she won an Oscar for that too, right?
I don't think so. I don't think it got good reviews, but I know like just publicly, like I remember this like as a kid.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the movie, by the way, but I remember like
I have
the feedback. I remember the feedback that Demi was getting was very positive for the role.
Yeah.
But all this to say, like, this is about Will's ego. Like, he needed a moment to not be a cuck.
Right.
Well,
it's also, that he did put out an apology. We should mention that. I mean, I should preface that his PR team wrote an apology for him.
Right. After the Academy said that they would investigate.
They're going to take his award away. Right. That was like, oh, shit, maybe I need to deal with this.
And now, and like what I heard from the BBC earlier today, like, as I was running errands, like, apparently, like, the Academy, well, the Academy ain't shit, but this is what they're saying, that they asked Will to leave, and he was like, no.
Refused to, right. Yeah.
Refused to. So
I saw was it Samuel L. Jackson and Denzel both kind of like Denzel going over to Chris and toning that down?
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was Samuel. I think it was Tyler Perry.
Well, all three of them is what I heard.
Maybe. I don't know. I know it was definitely Denzel and Tyler Perry was.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing, like very quick, like why I believe, obviously I feel it was just not really about Jada at all. Because if this were about the alopecia thing, like, and like if he really stood behind that slap, like he would have talked about it like in his acceptance speech for
also
the
who
award.
slapped?
But instead,
who slapped? Like I would never think of like there's so much like Charlie Murphy would be trying to Chicago Ridge hand people. Like that's speaking of Charlie Murphy, what a 5 fingers say to the face. They slap, if I remember correctly, that's what they do. And he was talking about fucking who slaps dude, I love Charlie Murphy. It fucking no man slaps a fucking another man. Back when that was even popular, they had a fucking they had a gunfight after, like fucking but yeah, it's just dumb news that I thought was. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I do want to preface this to, I'm sure no one here is young, but just in case we blow up,
right?
Whatever else, and people watch this episode, like I just want to give some premise to any young people who are watching, because they can't literally afford to do that because it's Hollywood,
right.
Like you can't do that in regular life. You can't just go to somebody and just slap them if they say some shit that they don't like, because you don't know, like, you don't know the reaction that person might have.
You also don't know what
like
you're dealing with, like,
exactly.
People are
like
not
that,
right. Like, even if you slap Chris Rock, you don't know that Chris Rock can just pull out a fucking gat and like,
exactly,
that's right. Like you don't
like
this is the thing that when people who engage with violence in any capacity, right? And I mean this in a controlled environment. You go take fucking Tybo on the weekend, right? It's like if you're involved with that level of violence, you tend to do more things to avoid violence in real life because you realized how fucking hard that shit is when it doesn't go your way, right? Like if you spar with anybody, if you do any of that, right? You're constantly then trying to avoid that stuff, de-escalating. Talk to bouncers who do this on a day-to-day basis, right? And they're constantly trying to de-escalate instead of engaging with violence. right? They would much rather get your drunk ass out the club without needing that, you know. So I don't know, and I don't know how drugs or alcohol involved Will's decision here either.
No drugs or alcohol. I think he like just his mental state has been just shit.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so not to say that might not have been included, because I mean this was the Oscars, so I'm sure they were partying and drinking, you know, like prior to and afterward.
Right.
But I think this is just mostly just for his mental state, you know, that has been shit. But having to say that, like, shit by their own creation.
Yeah.
Because they share too damn much about their life, you know, and it's getting to the point now, like, you know, like I read that there was a change.org petition for them to basically shut the fuck up, you know, so people are basically getting tired of how overly saturated, I guess they are, you know, and we're gonna have to continue dealing with this because, as I said, this thing is having legs. I think the Academy now is trying to like look like having the moral ground and being like, oh, now we have to do an investigation and all this kind of bullshit, when you had the power to control it right then and there and you didn't do it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it did give us some great memes, which, you know, people I hope can read on their own, so don't have to read you your own memes. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I heard on Twitter was like, the only reason you should be covering this is just to point out how ridiculous the entire story is anyway, and how it fucking doesn't matter.
No, this is Hollywood. This is a reality in of itself. This is nothing to do with us. So, I mean, I guess we'll continue watching it, you know, the story, but, you know, obviously, like, but just to kind of give people some context, we kind of debated back and forth if we wanted to talk about
this story, right?
But I think obviously given the Pfizer, you know, alopecia connection, you know, and just how jaded just the idea of alopecia is now coming into the consciousness now for people all of a sudden.
And for ladies who have a problem with that, please be aware, men do not give a fuck. We don't care. Like,
no.
You know, and I would love to see, like, men love to fucking Demi Moore and like G.I. Jane. Like, to me, that would be a compliment. Like, oh yeah, I look like Demi Moore. Great, fantastic. Like, you know, I don't know.
I mean, Chris could have said, when is the next Pretty Woman 2 movie coming out?
Right.
He could have said that.
Sure.
You know?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he could do a ton of stuff. And anyway, I do like the fucking everybody hates Chris meme. That's pretty fucking good.
I don't.
You know,
so,
no, you don't hate Chris.
I don't.
You watch that show at all?
Not the whole season, like a few episodes here and there. But I don't watch TV. If you know that.
Yes.
You know, I only watch
I have
shit
to.
on YouTube.
I mean, to get you started on a few of those shows, but yeah. No, I mean, I think I caught one episode had Terry Crews in. It's pretty decent. I mean, it was another sitcom that I felt like we didn't need. You know, that's like old Hollywood comedian, like what do they call that? Like, you know, career path, where it's like, okay, you do clubs, you do specials, you might do a movie, and, you know, eventually they'll give you like you know, your own like sitcom, and you'll have your Everybody Loves Raymond, and, you know, you'll run with that. I think Miss Pat's doing that now. I don't know if you know Miss Pat. Yeah, she's doing her own show on, I think, BET's online thing. Shout out Miss Pat. I love Miss Pat. She's fucking great. But apparently that show's pretty good, but I've not watched. Apparently, Collin, you only watch Murder, She Wrote.
I mean, I've watched Murder, She Wrote. You know, like
Angela
I watched it as a kid.
Right.
Yeah, I watched it as a
Can you
kid.
explain to me how a small fucking town in Rhode Island keeps having murders? Right? You know, the theory is that she was doing them and then like blaming it on everyone else. You know, like setting everyone else up. But anyway,
just real quick, just a question. So Chris Rock is going on tour now. Would you see him on tour?
Oh, fuck yeah. I'd see him. It should be the whole fucking like Joe Rogan, like all. I would go absolutely. Like get me green room tickets and I'll fucking be in there. Like, dude, I fucking love Chris Rock.
I'm actually debating if I want to go because
Yeah.
he's performing in Baltimore next. Well, April is basically here, but like within the next couple of weeks, and
Right.
and in DC directly in October.
Yeah.
But like, but from what I read, like tickets have been like with this, people have been selling out, like
Right.
like
he'll get more. He'll get more.
and they are jacking up the price now.
Yeah.
So
very much so.
capitalism at its best.
Yeah.
Like
he'll be selling out arenas
upcoming this weekend. Like I'm just looking now. His tickets for a show in Atlantic City are going for as much as $1,000 now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous,
Chris,
but capitalism. Yeah.
I'm on like daddy gets the big piece of chicken money. Like that's the kind of money I can like afford for tickets. So, that's one of the greatest bits of all fucking time.
Yeah.
Chris Rock's What Do the Daddy Get is incredible.
At least for tickets, like when at least right now, like where I'm at are fairly decent. So I'm debating, if I want to go but I love Chris anyway. So we'll see. But
dude, Chris's comedy is some of my like favorite stuff,
Yeah.
It's like him, Pryor, there's like they're the legends. Like they're definitely on the, comedy Mount Rushmore.
Right.
But anyway, I think that's all we got time for. We went through our 4 shows, so
and we went almost 2 hours.
Yeah, almost 10:45. Like, we were a little late coming in, but
so
plus
like
I
more like an hour
10
and a
minutes
half,
of right. So like I know I added an extra 5 minutes onto the timer, and then we kind of waited on that. So that was probably 5-10 minutes of change on top of like, I think we have an hour's worth of content when I cut it up and stuff. It'll be like 15-minute segments. So I actually
so we are trying to. This is a show that really the brainchild of Reef. And he just asked me, to be connected to this, and I agreed. I think it just gives me a way to kind of talk about issues like this, kind of separate from my channel, Kumano Mukwano. But obviously, we want to grow this out, and include guests, to talk about Pacific issues, and then like also like we want to have enough of a following where people kind of recommend to us like what news you would like us to talk about, or anyone who's here to comment on. So definitely subscribe to Indie News Network, and ideally we hope to do this every week in some capacity. It won't necessarily be me here, although I've kind of committed to doing it most of the time.
I mean, for me, it's any 2 INN members, right? And I don't know how often, I might pre-record stuff and put stuff out for this. It depends on how much time it takes me to prep and stuff. Setting it all up in PowerPoint and stuff like that means takes a little bit longer, but Jimmy seems to be able to do this like almost every day. So,
well, Jimmy has help.
He also has a team to do that, right? We're just us. I saw Marcus Cage. Man. Yeah, dude, definitely go run this back. Or if you want to wait for however long it takes me to get clips up, hopefully I don't have to clip this. That would be nice.
But ideally, we want enough people here to get that feedback from you guys. This is kind of why we do this. Like, I generally do enjoy hearing and seeing people in chat engaging and talking and sharing their own opinion too. So like I said, if you have news stories that you would like us to cover that mainstream or even some people within the space don't necessarily cover, let us know.
And I'll bring on people to talk about their stories if that's what we want to do as well. You know, depending on stuff, like if Mate wants to come on or anyone like that wants to cover their own written stuff, we might end up covering Robbie Yeager, have him come on as well. That should be fun. But yeah, otherwise this is going to be on INN's channel specifically, so make sure you like and subscribe, and Marcus would probably be telling people to hit that bell. I don't even know if that shit does anything anymore, but you should definitely just do it and ignore it like the most of us do. But
last thing before you go, like dream guests.
It's the Indie News Network's mainly about independent stuff, so but any of the independent creators that constantly don't get coverage because they're independent. So I don't know, dream guests, like any of the people at the Gray Zone would be fantastic. There's a ton out there that I would love to bring on. So
yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I've got boxes for multiple people, so we might have to get Convo Couch in at some point for something and all that stuff. So we'll see how all that goes. But I have no idea who's going to do this with us next week, and you might not see me on. It might be Collin and someone else. It might be 2 other people. We'll see how that goes. I'm talking to Rob, talk to Lucy, Tara, Whitney Webb would be a great guest to bring on as well. But yeah, pretty much INN hosts doing stuff. Prima Radical would be great to have on. Caitlin Johnstone. Any of those people would be great, especially for covering their articles and stuff like that. I'd love to bring them on and get their opinions on stuff, and put stuff in more detail. But otherwise, we'll keep doing stuff the way we're doing it. But yeah, this is a good first episode, I thought. We'll let people know. Go follow that INN Twitter as well. Get Indie News, I think is what it is, right? All our links are in link trees down in the doobly doo.
So shout for both of us. So Reef, it has his own channel, Reef After Dark. Check him out, and then co-pilots with Indie for their show as well.
Indie's going on with Warren tomorrow. That should be good. How Do We Miss That's on Sundays. Those are great. I always have a good time with those. I don't even know if I'm doing a show Friday because I don't even know if I'll have weed to do Reefer After Dark. I feel like Reefer needs Reefer, so working on it. I gotta go get my card again Thursday. My script ran out, and of course they just canceled an order without even telling me. I had to wake up at fucking the ass crack of dawn from 7 to 8 for the delivery person to show up with stuff, which makes no sense. Wow. You had to be from 8 in the morning to 7 p.m. That's their window. That's worse than the cable company. So, but anyway, there's, tomorrow I should get that taken care of. And hopefully if I have weed by then, I'll see if I can scrounge together some stuff. So, but
would you do the show without weed?
Yeah, I might have to call it the Dankrupt edition, but whatever.
You might have to do that with me the next time I'm on.
I also want to do a peer pressure episode at some point to get people who don't smoke to try it out.
Well, how are you gonna do that considering that people are not in the same room with you?
Yeah, I mean they would have to do it on their own with me there, through Zoom or something. But yeah, those might be, we might wait till those are in-person events, but there's a couple of those that would be good. But yeah, anyway, go check out those links in the description below. I've got Collin's link tree down there. I've got my link tree. Both of us could always use some donations, if people are wanting to give those things. Links for Indie News are all at Indie News Network, right? Start following all the members of that because they deserve some support. But otherwise, I think that's us out. Shout out to all the people in chat. Warren, Les Bones, Marcus Cage is here, and shout out to all the people who watched this back because they couldn't watch it live. But anyway, bye everybody. That's us for tonight. Good night.
Have a good week.